years go back.
This is the morning show.
On any street. Any street corner.
No. Mark Riley.
Yes, we're back 26 minutes before the hour of 9 o'clock. Jerry Hickey coming up at 9, and right now, it's a pleasure to welcome to our microphones the president of Local 100 of the Transport Workers Union, Mr. John Samuelsen. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mark. How you doing?
Doing great, man. You're in the airport, huh?
I am, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, we're talking about a forum, which it will be my privilege to moderate tomorrow. You've got 6 mayoral candidates. Now, tell us about the forum.
Well, we're basically trying to get transportation, and particularly the public transit system in New York City, back on the map and back at the level of discussion that it deserves. So that's what our goal is, and we do intend to achieve it.
Why do you think mass transit has gotten kind of sort of on the back burner of late?
Well, I don't think there's even a question that the mayoral candidates and the current mayor of the city of New York have paid, and the governor as well, have paid less attention to downstate public transit than they should. I think part of the reason with the mayoral candidates is that there's become such a reliance in the city of New York on state funding to fund the New York City transit system, that mayors and mayoral candidates have become comfortable with the notion that the state of New York and transit riders themselves are going to float the system, rather than having New York City make the direct contributions to the system that they should be making.
Now, is the city not making any direct contribution, or is it just too low?
No, it's far less than 1%. It's about somewhere in the neighborhood of about a third of a percentage point of their overall budget. So if they contribute about $187 million, and if they were contributing 1% of the overall budget, and you figure 1% to fund this great transit system that we have, isn't that much of a stretch. The number will be around $700 million.
Would that
far short?
Would that end up healing a lot of the wounds in mass transit as far as the workers are concerned, in terms of perhaps safety issues and in terms of expanding the system?
Absolutely, particularly in terms of transit riders and their concerns. If you put that $700 million figure into perspective, and bear in mind it's only 1% of the overall New York City operating budget, $700 million, the service cuts back in 2010 that were absolutely devastating to New York's working communities only saved New York City Transit about $50 million a year, $53 million a year. So
that's all?
To put that number in, $53 million in 2010, the first year they did it. So to put that number into perspective, that $700 million would actually save this system and restore the service, allow them to expand the system, and it's not happening. And it needs to happen, and it needs to be on everybody's radar.
Absolutely. But, John, you know how the current mayor, reacts to that. Well, we don't have the money. Do they have the money? Would they have to impose a new tax to get the money?
Well, I think that the answer to that question goes hand in hand with a discussion about a viable long-term funding mechanism for the New York City transit system. And you know something? Let me add one other piece. The city of New York is only paying about somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 million for the school fare program. They should be kicking in about $70 or $80 million for the school fare program. They claim they didn't have the money for that. In 2010, in fact, they moved to essentially throw kids out of the system and refuse to pay for school kids to use the public transit system to go to work. And there was a big controversy around that. And
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so, but if you bear in mind that the Amalgamated Transit Union school bus strike, the city's claiming they put $20 million into school kids riding the system as a result of that strike. So if they did that without raising any taxes, they did that without a pre-budgeted plan to do it. They can put money into public transit. It's a matter of political will to actually say that supporting the public transit system in New York City is the right thing to do and is viable to the economy. It's essential to a viable economy in the downstate area, and they really need to make it their own obligation rather than take the position that it's everybody else's obligation.
Important point. John, do you intend to endorse a mayoral candidate this cycle?
This cycle?
Yeah, in other words, because nobody knows when the primary is yet. So I'm just saying, like, you know, in the primaries and then again in the general.
Yeah, well, we certainly do. We do intend to endorse a mayoral candidate. We're not at the point where we've honed in on that candidate. There has to be a lot of discussion at my executive board, and there has to be a lot more discussion with the individual candidates who are all primarily friendly to organized labor. Or at least the Transport Workers Union has friends in the mayoral race, for sure. But this issue of who's going to have the vision for this downstate public transit system, who's going to emerge with that vision that's going to best protect transit riders and transit workers is going to get the endorsement of TWU Local 100.
Now, I know that rider safety has been obviously a concern of the union, but also a greater public concern as people have fallen on the tracks, and many of them actually have lost their lives. Now, the TWU had a proposal to have motormen train operators slow the trains down as they go into the station. The MTA resisted that. You guys actually put out a kind of media campaign to make the public aware. Where does that stand at this point?
Well, we are actively organizing among train operators to explain to our own members the value of slowing the trains down, proceeding with more caution, strictly out of a respect for the safety of the riding public and out of respect for their own livelihoods. When our train operators run somebody over that was pushed into the track or fell into the track, they deal with it the rest of their lives. And I mean, really, some suffer just extreme emotional trauma over these incidents, and there is a way to prevent it, and the way to prevent it is to proceed with caution rather than proceed at full operating speed into the station environment, which the company currently advises everybody to do. It's crazy.
Why did they do that? Why?
On the tracks every week. Every week, New York City Transit riders are dying on the tracks, either through homicide or through some accidental death, and the New York City Transit Authority is not addressing it in proper fashion.
Well, yeah, 2 people got hit yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
One died, another's in critical condition. Why do you think it is important for transit to maintain? I mean, I ride the trains enough to know that, some trains pull into the stations. They don't slow down until the head 3 or 4 cars are already in the station. Why do you think it's important for the MTA to continue to recommend that they come into the stations fast?
I think the MTA has made a whole lot of arguments that they try to intellectualize the issue and make arguments that might look good on paper to somebody on the outside looking in about how if we slow the trains down coming into the station, that people won't get to work on time and that type of thing. But that's all a bunch of nonsense. They need to the on-time performance of the trains has to do with the headway, the time between trains pulling into the station, not with the speed that trains are entering the stations at. So the company might have to add some more trains to maintain capacity, and I think that's what the resistance is.
Increased service, huh?
Well, they might have to add. It's interesting. They would have to increase the amount of trains to some degree in order to maintain the level of service that we have right now, the level of service. But the headway, as long as the headway between the trains was maintained, the on-time train performance would be exactly what it is now. And they've resisted it. And by the way, they made some statements at the New York City Council hearing on this issue that were just patently false. But they actually acknowledged that most of the deaths occur, I think, between 9 o'clock at night and 11 o'clock at night. That's when most of these incidents occur. And they told the New York City Council, Chairman Baca at the New York City Council Transportation Committee, that they didn't have the capacity to add trains during between 9 and 11, that they didn't actually have the rolling stock. They didn't have the trains that were necessary.
What?
And that's patently false, because during rush hour, there's 30-40% more trains on the right of way, and after 7 o'clock at night, the amount of trains out on the tracks diminish. The capacity diminishes. They could just put those trains right back out on the road between 9 and 11 at the height of when all of these fatalities are occurring, and they could, and in doing so, they would dramatically reduce the amount of fatalities. There's no question about it. Put more trains out, going between 9 and 11, and slow the trains down, but maintain headway, and that would go a long way towards curing their problem. But they don't want to do it.
Incredible. Again, tomorrow from 6 to 9 p.m., a public forum on the future of mass transit. It's a mayoral forum. 6 candidates will be there. Free seating is available. People have to register in order to do that. But it takes place from 6 to 9 p.m. at the CUNY Murphy Institute for Worker Education and Labor Studies. That's 25 West 43rd Street. That's 5th and 6th, right, John?
Yes. Yep.
On the 18th floor. Can people still RSVP?
Yes, definitely. And we hope they do, and we hope to have a nice crowd and a nice discussion about the future of public transit in New York City.
I got you. And that would be, let's see. If you want to RSVP online, you can go to nyctransitforum.eventbrite, eventbrite.com.
Yeah.
All right. John Samuelsen, as always, great to talk to you, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, Mark. Thanks a lot.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. John Samuelsen, president of Local 100 of the Transport Workers Union. We take a quick break.